never did I think I would lose 20 pounds, let alone 50 pounds. You're gonna wanna watch this whole video. Keto is definitely on everybody's lips. There's the very pro-keto, there's the very anti-keto. I've heard people say, keto people, they're like a cult, it's just a fad, it's not lasting, it's bad for your health. Well, I'm here to personally tell you that keto works, and in so many more ways than you could possibly imagine. I've lost 50 pounds with the keto lifestyle, have maintained a healthy weight through my current pregnancy. Yes, I continued keto while pregnant, but it's been more than just that. I have been a chronic yo-yo dieter my entire life. With keto, that's completely changed the game when it came to me losing weight. 50 pounds. Yes, there is the fat loss. I'm gonna tell you how you're going to lose fat. It's more than just fat loss. In addition to the fat loss, I completely reversed my depression. I was in a deep depression for a couple of years postpartum. Man, what a difficult time in my life. Before keto, I was chronically ill, regularly on antibiotics. I have completely restored my immune system with keto, and I have used a few other tools to help me along my way, in conjunction with keto, but today I want to specifically talk about keto. There's so many people that just dive in headfirst when it comes to keto, and on some level I do suggest that, like, you really have to just push yourself in, get going. I also would say that it's really important that you do that in an educated way. This is a particular way of eating. By eating in this particular way, you're tricking your body. You're turning it into a fat-fueled body instead of a glucose, sugar-burning body. What exactly is keto? The ketogenic way of eating was developed around the 1920s with observation that fasting had very positive benefits on epileptic seizures. The problem with fasting, the patient is literally starving and can't eat to reach a metabolic state within the body to have those positive effects on their epilepsy. Doctors discovered that by giving their patients a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet, that mimicked fasting. So their patients could benefit from the positive effects that fasting has on their epilepsy, but still be allowed to eat foods and not have to starve themselves. Of course, along with that observation, it was also noted that there was fat loss in these patients, which was kind of a conundrum. They're eating high amounts of fat and they're burning fat. As a matter of fact, they're having a hard time keeping weight on the patient. That's kind of the quick rundown of the history of keto. So when someone wants to tell you keto's a fad, it's going to blow over, it's not. It's been around for decades. People have just recently clung to it because it works. That's why so many people are jumping on the keto wagon. So the next thing that I found super important in learning about the keto lifestyle was understanding fat storage and fat loss. Every time we consume food, we have a metabolic response, a hormone response of insulin. Insulin raises in our bloodstream. Now, foods are scaled on a glycemic index. The higher on the index the food is, the higher the insulin response you're going to have after consuming that food. So why is insulin so important? Well, insulin is a fat-storing hormone. When there is presence of insulin in our system, fat burning is not happening, period. Insulin is the hormone that regulates the absorption of glucose or sugar. The thing about sugar is whether you're eating a bagel or whether you're pouring honey down your throat, your body is metabolizing both as sugar. And insulin levels that are regularly and chronically high in our system, we can only intake so much into our cells. We can't utilize the excess glucose. This is where fat storage happens. Our body begins to create reserves. This is known as glycogen. Glycogen storage are our levels of glucose that our body has stored for later. Glycogen is mainly stored in our muscles and in our liver. It's fat across our body. Its purpose is to be readily available fuel for when our glucose levels drastically decrease. Our body would then click on and say, okay, there's been a drastic decrease in glucose. I need energy. I'm going to tap into these stores of glycogen. However, because in today's society, food is so abundant and frequent and at the ready, we're almost never in the situation where our body is tapping into those reserves. All we're doing is continuing to store fat. We're never moving from burning glucose, sugar, to burning fat. Here's where I hope that my explanation of keto makes the most sense to you. So now we're going to talk about fat burning. This is something I never understood before. I thought it was 100% all about calories. Eat less, move more, you'll lose fat. Not true. Remember how a little bit earlier I was talking about glycemic index. Breads, starches, potatoes, grains, rice, all very, very high on the glycemic index, meaning high insulin response in the body. Fat, this is beautiful, has zero glycemic index. So when you're eating fat, you are not spiking insulin. Eating increased fat, eating lower carbohydrate, you're keeping your glucose levels low. When your glucose levels are low, that's when your body switches on and says, I need fuel, I need the reserves. This alternative fuel is fat. Not fat directly. The fat is taken and converted into ketones through our liver, and that is the fuel that is then going to energize and run our bodies. So no longer glucose, ketones. Very simply, in order to be in fat burning mode, running on ketones, you need to deplete your glycogen storage. You have to get rid of that glucose in your system in order for your body to turn on that fat burning system and fuel from ketones versus glucose. So some people say, well, without carbohydrates, you're not going to have enough energy. You're going to be weaker. There's just all of these your brain needs carbohydrates. That's actually not true. And as a matter of fact, as you're making this transition in this lifestyle, you're going to notice some negative effects known as the keto flu. Maybe some symptoms like grogginess, fatigue, loss in energy. You might even feel a little nauseous, headaches, and some other things that come along with that. However, those are temporary symptoms of your body getting rid of the glycogen. It's not eating the fat and the low carbohydrate that's making you feel so crappy. It's your body getting rid of that old fuel that it used to run on. There are definitely those people that it has just been ingrained into them that glucose is the better fuel, and that's what we should fuel our bodies with. If you need it up in energy, you need to eat your carbohydrates. But the problem with that is it's very short-lived. You're going to increase your carbohydrates, you're going to have a surge in energy, you're going to burn through that fast, and then you're going to crash. And then you've got to start all over. And so why not just eliminate that whole cycle, fuel yourself with a better kind of fuel source, not have those ups and downs and spikes and dips, and have steady energy. Let me tell you, I know the difference because I have experienced this. And man, you want to get rid of those spikes and those dips. You are going to feel incredible. When the body has the choice between the two fuels, it's always going to go for the glucose first. So some people might say, aha, well, that right there, that means that the body prefers glucose as its primary fuel. But that's really not the case. How we really should think of it is our body wants to get rid of that fast burning, dirty fuel so that it can move in to the better, longer lasting, hotter burning fuel. So if there ever is a presence of glucose in the system, the body is going to absolutely burn that glucose first before it will start again using ketones as its primary fuel source. That's why it's important to keep your fat higher and keep your carbohydrate lower. When we're fueling our body with something like ketones, fat, versus glucose, sugar, we're benefiting from lower levels of insulin, which is good for our overall health and long-term health. We have better cognitive function even later in life. We're protecting our brains by fueling our body in this way, as a matter of fact. Longer lasting, stable energy instead of having those spikes and dips. I first want to explain that macros are a big focus in this style of eating. Keto is high fat, moderate protein, low carbohydrate. That's where your focus is going to be, and you're going to eat certain ratios of these 3 macros to get your body into the fat burning mode of ketosis. Now, if you're like me, you've heard of macros, but you're like, what? Macros, what do you mean? I suggest to begin with, so that you can properly learn amounts of these 3 macros, how to combine them, and the volume to eat, that you track to begin with. Don't let this become something that you obsess over. Let it be a learning tool, because I know when I first started keto, I was like, eat all these grams of fat. Like, what? How? I don't even know where to begin with that. And so by calculating what my macros needed to be for my goals and inputting that into a food tracking app, the one I love is Stupid Simple Macros, calculated my macro ratios, put it into that app, and then I could go through and I could click the foods and kind of plan for the following day. Okay, if I eat this and this and this, then that's going to help me reach my fat macros. If I eat this, that's going to put me way over the top of my carbohydrate macros, so I don't want to eat that. I want to find something else that's lower in carbohydrate. It really helped me figure out what to eat, how much to eat, and what to combine to make meals. So for starting out, I do suggest that people do this, because oftentimes you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to eat way too much, or you're not going to be eating enough. And it was really to my surprise that I struggled to eat as much fat as I really needed to eat. Dive in, start. There are things that you can do in the immediate that will start to show you progress. As you are implementing those things and making those adjustments, continue to educate yourself so that you can continue to build on what you're doing. And by transitioning yourself, it's more likely that it's going to stick as a lifestyle instead of a fad and will become second nature. First and foremost, start cutting out the obvious carbs and the obvious sugars. Cereal, pasta, rice, corn, beans, grains, sugar, honey, agave. Stop eating these things. Chips. These are things that very obviously are high in carbohydrate and are going to spike your insulin. Eliminate the obvious carbohydrates. Next step, number 2, keep the carbohydrates that you do consume as nutrient-dense carbohydrates. So the carbohydrates that are going to make up your diet are primarily going to be vegetables, some fruits, and maybe some dairy, stuff like that, but primarily vegetables, things like kale, collard greens, spinach, artichoke, Brussels sprouts, lettuce. Eat fresh whole foods. You're gonna feel really good for it. Now I know some people are saying, yeah, I hate vegetables. It's okay, because you're also going to be increasing your fats, which means that you can make a lot of these foods, a lot of these carbohydrates, really delicious by putting on some butter, putting on some olive oil and some salt and pepper and seasonings, and really make it taste really delicious. As well as things like coconut oil, a real pure tallow, ghee, natural butter. The other way that you're going to increase your fat is you're going to be eating fattier meats. Especially starting out, processed meats like deli meats, hot dogs, stuff like that. Those are good transitioning sort of foods, but I would definitely suggest that you work then to move more towards more whole, natural cuts of meats. Fattier meats like chicken thighs, bone in, skin on, chicken legs, chicken wings, steak, pork chops, lamb, 80-20 ground beef, bacon, of course, maybe some eggs. Number 5, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you find yourself a good electrolyte supplement and begin supplementing immediately. Eating a low carbohydrate way of eating is naturally diuretic. Supplement this to try and keep your sodium, potassium, and magnesium levels at a healthy level. You don't want them to drop. That's where you're gonna really start feeling like crud, lethargic, headache, moody, awful, 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 awful. And they will help you feel tip-top as you're making the transition. And then finally, number 6, I always suggest that people begin practicing eating less frequently. Being told to eat small, frequent meals through the day is false. It's not keeping your metabolism going. It is only increasing your insulin levels more regularly through the day, which means you're not burning fat. First, start by eliminating snacks. Just eat 3 meals in the day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Then when you really feel like you have that down, try and cut it down to 2 meals a day. Some people carry on to 1 meal a day, OMAD, and they say that they feel phenomenal with this. Now, what's gonna happen in the first few days, first week, second week of transitioning to this style of eating? Okay, so we already talked about you want to make sure that you supplement with electrolytes. So definitely be doing that. Your body's going to be flushing excess water weight. In the first week for myself, and for many people, they experience the same. I lost 7 pounds in the first week, a total of 14 pounds in the second week. Now, the majority of that was excess water weight. But who cares? That was 14 pounds that my body was no longer hauling around, bloated with. It feels great. Plus, it really gives you that boost of encouragement that you're like, yes, this feels amazing. I'm feeling great. I see something happening. I want to continue. And then after the first week to second week, it really depends on your glycogen store levels. If you were someone that ate a ton of carbohydrates, a ton of sugars, then it might take a little bit longer for you to get into that state of ketosis, into fat burning. So typically by, the end of the first week or the second week, most people then are transitioned into ketosis, are being fueled by fat, and that's where you're going to see the smaller numbers typically. Now, if you're someone that has a lot of weight to lose, you could continue to see those larger numbers for a little while longer. So I think that's where I'm going to cut it short. I wanted to get as straight to the point as I could, but put in as much information as I could as well. Even with everything that I've shared, there's still more to share. If you would like to read and learn even more, please go to my website, deliciousdetermination.com. I'll leave a link below. I have a blog post about starting keto as a beginner, as well as a free ebook that really goes into detail